Welcome to the Money Insights Podcast, where high-income earners come to learn wealth-building strategies that will take them from high income to high net worth. With your hosts, financial and wealth-building experts, Christian Allen and Rod Zabriskie.
Welcome into today's episode of the Money Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Allen. With me, as always, Rodney the Pod Zabriskie. Well, did you like that emphasis on Zabriskie?
Man, that was good. That was good.
It felt a little uncomfortable, I got to be honest with you. But we're just gonna roll with it today. We're gonna roll with it. So, what's up, man? It's been a little while since we recorded. I was out of town last week, and feels like it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it has. But here we are, back in the saddle. Excited for another awesome topic.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to be back in the saddle, if I'm being honest with you.
That's kind of how it goes, I guess.
A week ago at this time, I was flying over Kauai and enjoying the scenery. And now here we are.
So you mentioned your open door helicopter trip.
That was one of the many highlights. Okay, the open door helicopter ride is super cool. It definitely adds an additional element. Now, the nice thing, you don't ever feel like, I never felt like fearful that I was going to fall out or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you get a much better view and much better pictures, right? Because now you don't have the glass and the glares in the way. So I'll have to share with you some of the pictures we took. They're pretty incredible along the Nepali coast. Man, it's just so good. So good. So that was fun. Awesome. It wasn't all good though, Rod. It was not all good. There were some down moments. It was a downpour the first 2 days we were there. So we start out on this ATV tour, and it's like a little light sprinkle, kind of like a mist. It feels nice. It's like 70, 73, 74 degrees, something like that. Feels great. And it's nice because it's actually keeping some of the dust and dirt from us, because we're riding on like the side by side 4-wheeler things, right? And we get going further along. It's like a 4-hour venture. We get about like an hour and a half into it. It starts to rain. 2.5 hours, it starts to really rain. And then by like 3 hours, it literally feels like a shower. Wow. It was just absolutely. Yeah. So we had this moment. I asked Heather after we got back, like, what was the most memorable moment, when we both were like, it had to have been standing under that tree and just being like, what is happening here? So, and we were like freezing cold at that point. It dropped probably like 10 or 12 degrees, and they were like, you're still driving in your little thing. It was crazy. And then the next day it rained and poured too. And I went a little crazy on the planning for this trip, Rod. Yeah. So I had like 2 things every time. Every day I had 2 activities ready to go. And it turns out I think we're more of a 1-activity couple than a 2-activity couple. But the next morning we got up bright and early to go do this raft tour along the Nepali coast. Again, bad weather. It's like raining and pouring. Okay. Well, being on a raft in like terrible way, like, I mean, I'm not saying like dangerous waves, but just like super choppy the whole time. Go for an 80-mile trip, round trip, was absolutely wild. And you've got like this water pelting you in the face. It was cold. But I got to tell you, after we did it, we felt like we really accomplished something.
Okay.
So that's that.
And I can see how that fits perfectly with our topic today, because
is that your way of saying, all right, Christian, we're done with the vacay. Let's get to the real stuff.
I love hearing about it.
It's okay. It's okay, Rod. I'm not going to take offense to it.
But I thought that's where you were headed. I thought you intentionally built this up.
I absolutely did. Okay. So today's topic, we're going to try something new and a little bit different. After just a little over 5 years. Are we over 5 years? How many episodes are we at? 260?
Yeah,
or am I lower than that?
4 years and
okay, 4 to 5 years, somewhere in there. After 4 to 5 years, and really trying not to do like the exact same topic, like really trying to like spice things up, change it, maneuver angles that we talk about. We're trying something a little bit different, and it's certainly like in line with the stuff that we typically talk about, but I'm just trying to do it in a little bit of a different way this time. So just roll with me on this one, Rod, and everybody listening, just roll with me. we promise that we will do everything in our power to provide real valuable insights from the team at Money
Insights.
Money Insights with Money Insights. Okay, so today's topic, Rod, is the evolution of success. We're going to talk about 9 natural evolutions of success, or just 9. We'll just say 9 evolutions that we have observed as advisors who are meeting with a lot of really successful people across the country, and people that, you know, I mean, especially when I was on the phones every day, like you and the rest of the team are, like, I remember many times, you know, at the end of the day thinking like, oh, that was really cool. I met this person, this person, and this person, and they do all of these unique things that are making an impact in the world and that kind of thing. So I really do think that what we're talking about today can have, you know, really valuable insights. And so while it's a different format than maybe we typically go about it, we are committed to bringing real value. So, Rod, we're going to talk about 9 natural evolutions we've seen come from building wealth, starting with the way we see people view risk, their perspective on risk. And we're going to kind of compare and contrast what it looks like early on to what we see that evolution of. So again, in each of these, we're going to start with, okay, where do people oftentimes start, and what does that evolution and change end up being over time as they create more success? And to be fair, like a lot of what we're talking about here is specific to wealth, and I want to be really clear. Wealth and success are not mutually exclusive, right? Those they're absolutely different things. So we're specifically, though, today talking about some of the shifts and things that we see that come from being successful at building wealth. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay,
fair.
Rod, kick us off with risk. Like, what does the risk perspective look like when you see, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll frame it like this. We're going to do person A, person B, except we're going to they've got to have names. So we're going to have Danette and Jethro. And Jethro. Okay. So Danette, actually, we're going to okay. So Jethro's, he's the young party kid, you know, 25, getting into his career. He's not really partying. He's serious about life. But you know, maybe not quite as serious and evolved as Danette is. Okay. So Jethro's the 25-year-old. He's just getting started, starting to really focus on and get excited about building wealth, but it's early. Meanwhile, Danette is, you know, 25 years down the road. She's really been put a lifetime of focus and understanding and learning and all those kind of things, and she's really done well and had a lot of success. So where do we start, Rod? Jethro. What does Jethro think about, and when it comes to how do you feel about that name? I'm not loving it. You do? Okay. Well, we'll roll with it then. Okay, so
I always love it when you come up with names. You just always come up with the good ones.
It was, those ones are doozies. Do you feel okay about Danette? We do know it, Danette. Is that okay still?
Let's do it.
Okay,
I'm always on board.
Let's talk about risk. What do you typically see from early wealth builders like Jethro from a risk standpoint?
Yeah. So to begin with, it's afraid of losing money, be like overprotective, making decisions that really, you feel like you're building a cocoon around your nest eggs because you don't want to lose it. No matter what, you don't want to lose it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And oftentimes we're making short-term decisions that might have again an impact today, but are actually likely to hurt us over the long term, right? Because I need that benefit right now. I need it today in order to survive. And oftentimes you just genuinely do need it in that moment, right? So it could be the right decision. But typically we're seeing kind of that, hey, survival mode, short-term decision making, which of course we want to see evolve as we get to our friend Danette.
Yeah, and I'll give an example. So I was talking to one of my sons here recently. He was talking about, like, in his insurance deductibles, like what's a good deductible I should have, or things like that. And my response was, well, when you're still really early in your career, you haven't yet built up your like emergency fund and your reserves and things like that. You're probably okay paying for a little bit of a lower deductible, pay higher premiums for a lower deductible because you don't have the reserves to pay extra. But later on down the road, you're going to be okay having a higher deductible because you'll have more cash, more reserves to cover that. And then by doing that, you'll be able to save on your premiums longer term.
Oh, right? Man, that was a good example. That is a good example. And it's like very specific to this risk, right? I'm literally saying, hey, I know that I probably would save money by doing it this way, but I'm not in a position to do it that way today. Right. Yeah. Whereas later down the line, I can look at how dad's doing it and be like, okay, he, is a little more established and principles come into play. We know that over time I can self-insure on this and end up likely coming out ahead more often than not.
Yeah. And in both cases, you want the umbrella policy, right? So that both helps.
Places you want it.
Yep. So, and in doing this, kind of the way we're approaching this, we are going to oversimplify it because life really doesn't work where you only think about risk in a vacuum, independent of everything else. But we're addressing it, right? It's one of the 9. We're hitting it in that way. It's
one of the 9.
And
yes, one of the 9.
Example of
okay. And I think the idea here is, so here's what I thought of when I was trying to think. I always go through these outlines I create and I think, what kind of value can we bring to the audience, right? What kind of value? Mm-hmm. So in case it's not obvious what the value is, I'm just going to tell you in advance. And that way it'll be really easy for people to actually pick out those nuggets of value that we're about to drop, Rod. So what are those value nuggets? If you are one of those people, if you're already the Danette, then it's going to be like a nice affirmation, a pat on the back of things that I've done well. And you can be like, oh, I remember the good old days when I did feel that way, right? Or you can be like, God, these guys don't know what they're talking about. And you can send us an email and be like, that wasn't how it was for me at all. That would be great too. Any of those are great. But first, hopefully that's you. And then if you're one of those people who maybe you haven't evolved in success in that specific thing or in that money principle, it'll hopefully give some ideas of things that I might consider doing instead of what I'm doing now, right? Again, not to suggest there's a definitive right or wrong, because to your point, this all happens in stages.
Yeah, and hopefully it also creates somewhat of a bridge so that if I am more in Jethro's stage, but I'm talking to a Danette, I can maybe understand the language they're speaking a little better by what we covered today. So
yeah, I like it. Okay. So now we're into time horizon, Rod. And I kind of hit on this. I kind of already blew this one up because I feel like I used this example, but oftentimes we see short time horizons. And so when we talk about investing, it might be more about like, hey, how can I get the very best return today, even if it means potentially taking on more risk than maybe I should at that stage in my life. Right. And so that's, chasing returns, I think ends up being, well, it's a young man's game. We'll call it that, Rod. Just like football. It's a young man's game. You kind of learn over time. You're like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work the way that I hope. But I think when we first get started, it really is easy to look at the time horizons and become impatient, right? Just because time feels so long. Man, I'm going to feel like such an old man already, but I was just talking to Heather about this. Every year goes by so much faster. Man, I don't even know how fast it's going to go by when I'm your age, Rod.
Oh, yeah. It just keeps speeding up. It does.
I remember someone told me that when I was like 12, and I've remembered it, and it has absolutely stayed true. But like at the end of the day, that is one of those things that happens. Our time horizon just happens to change, and we typically view time different. But maybe for me, when I think about me, I'm thinking about young Christian. I was impatient. I'm still impatient, but I was more impatient. And that at times hurt me, to be totally honest with you.
Well, here's a quote that I heard from you, and you were quoting someone else. So you're going to remember who it was. I don't remember. But I remember you saying, because it stuck with you, that you don't want to make long-term decisions based on short-term needs.
Yeah, I know who told me that, but I don't know if it was like a quote or if it was just good advice.
Just what they
And
said, yeah.
I think it was just good sage advice that I got. So I do remember that, and it has stuck with me. And at times in my career, I've definitely used that, and it's pretty well served. It's served me well in general. Let's say that, right? There's probably been a few moments where I could say, oh, maybe I should have done that. Maybe things would have worked out a little bit better had I made this decision. But for the most part, I can say, all right, if I was able to take a step back and look at things in that perspective, then I ended up in a better place overall. So, Jethro, our advice to you is don't just think short term. Don't be impatient. Okay, I say that, Rod. We're going to use another quote: patient persistence. That's what we really need, right? Because you don't want to be like, all right, time horizons don't matter. Just go do your thing. That's like, it can't be that herky jerky about it, right? You have to be focused. If I want to build wealth, it does not happen by accident. There has to be some urgency that exists in doing that. There just has to also be balance that comes with that, so that we don't find ourselves, making decisions that take us 3 steps back and then we're climbing just to get back to where we were.
And that patience is key, because I mean, again, probably going back to your herky jerky thing. If I'm only giving any idea 6 months to prove itself, I'm going to be herky jerky. I'm going to be giving up. I'm going to be restarting. I'm never going to really get the momentum that I need, as opposed to if I let things play themselves out, being smart, still urgency, still trying to be as efficient as possible in the way that I'm doing things, but giving things time to play themselves out.
It's a difficult lesson to learn, isn't it? Yep. It's a difficult lesson to learn. Okay, next, Rod, I want to talk about decision making. How have you seen decision making change in the successful, like especially the financially successful people that you work with?
Well, when people are early on, and especially in this shift between going from traditional wealth building, right, in the stock market compared to the alternative side, well, let's face it, we didn't really know what we were doing on the traditional side either when we started out.
Nope.
But it was just so familiar. Oh, you put money in the 401k, you get a stockbroker, whatever, right? And so you're investing on that side, and it's familiar. Hey, we know what stocks are, we know what mutual funds are, so we're investing in those things. When we move over to the alternative side, it's actually not that we necessarily know anything less, because we didn't know a whole lot about the risk, the fees, the other things that were happening inside of the traditional investing, but it was just so familiar we didn't realize it. On the alternative side, we absolutely know it, because it's all brand new. It's new thought processes, new decision making, new perspective. And so it's really easy, especially coming from the traditional side over to the alternative side, to only think about return. What's my rate of return on this investment? And that's what makes it worth it. Right?
Yeah.
That's what drives my decision making. What am I going to invest in? Well, what's the rate of return? What's it going to do for me? And from that specifically. And what Danette knows now that Jethro maybe doesn't yet, is there's a lot more to it than just the rate of return. It's positioning. It could be tax advantages. It could be leverage. It could be a lot of different things that work within the investment, the strategy, the overall picture, that where something can serve a role, and it may not necessarily be giving me the best returns, quote unquote, but because it serves that role and it enhances, or it works in conjunction with the other things that I'm doing, it has just as important of a role as it would if it is the thing that's giving me all that better return.
Yeah, and it could be that it has far more value than what I get from I could have, I could give a lot of examples, but I could have a higher rate of return in one place, but have a lower return in another place. but have, and again, just I'm talking sticker returns here. Let's say that I'm at a brokerage account and I'm getting 15%, or let's say that I invest in a real estate project that I get 12%. Let's just say that theoretically.
Yeah.
But now I'm taking, on one side, I'm taking depreciation and things like that. That's, creating real tax benefits. On the other, I don't have that same. Well, even in that very simplistic way, just that one element. And now we bring into the rest of the equation, right? So there could be, we're talking about things like what passes to the next generation the most successfully. Can I leverage to your point, can I leverage the investment to go create another asset? All of these things end up being part of the equation that, to your point, oftentimes the younger us doesn't necessarily know. We have to learn that not always the hard way. Like the smartest Jethros out there, they go and listen to really good podcasts like this, and they start to see like, oh, there's a lot of things that I could be doing that actually could create way more value. And when I say value, it doesn't have to just be economic value. But in this case, I'm focusing primarily on economic value. The higher return does not always create the most economic value. All of the other factors or several of the other factors are going to be every bit as important as just that specific rate of return, right?
Yep.
Okay, so decision-making changes, and especially from an investment perspective, we often go from this side of it to what, Rod? What does that change to?
Yeah, so it becomes more of an overall broader picture, vision, purpose. I'm driving towards something bigger than just the return or just that one investment and what it's doing.
Yeah, so now it's like a principled wealth building system. It's a plan. You're going from, hey, I invest in something, to I'm creating an investment plan strategy that I want to create XYZ for me.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I like it. Okay, we are now to number 4, Rod. How have we seen people's learning change? I'll kick this one off. So I think the easiest way I'm trying to be like really honest with myself here, Rod. I'm trying to put myself 20 years back and be like, okay, and I don't know if this was true, but I kind of think it might've been. I certainly think that I was looking for easy ways that would get me somewhere quickly.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I know that my dad had to work forever to do, my grandpa. I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to do that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just didn't know if I wanted to do that. And so then I think at times I probably pushed too far to the other side as well. Right. And so for each of us, again, I'm going to say this a lot, but it ends up being kind of a tug and pull of, and when we really just need balance, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going too far one way or the other, we need to kind of stay in that center lane. Well, for me, I think I absolutely, had lessons that I learned that would have been a lot easier to learn from a friend or a family member or a book than it did from making a bad decision. And yet, on the other hand, I look back and I'm like, okay, and I also kind of was always urgent in a lot of ways. And so that served me well also. So anyway, I'm not even sure like what to think of that, but I do know that regardless, my learning style has changed over time. And I wish I could say I'm getting more trusting, Rod, but it turns out that it's going the other direction.
Uh-oh.
I know. I wish I could. So I used to be one of those people that's just like, everybody's just good. Like you're going to run into like, there's bad apples here and there, but it turns out there's more bad apples than I realized. I don't want to sound like too negative, but unless I just am the one that keeps running into them, I don't know, Rod. Anyway, so those are some of the differences that I think about in terms of how do I learn today versus how did I learn then? And I'm specifically talking like about learning through experience more than anything. Because well, the way all of us learn is a little bit different today. It's called podcasts and audiobooks. Nobody reads books anymore, Rod. The dying art. Just kidding. You're like, I just read one yesterday. I'm just teasing.
Well, I won't say that.
But it's It's a dying breed. Okay, so those are some of the things that come to my mind when I think about the differences in learning. What do you think?
Maybe I'll, because I'm going to say something similar, but maybe just from a little bit of a different angle. And it's, you feel like when you're young, you're like, I'm going to find the shortcut.
Yeah.
And
sometimes people do, by the way.
Well, that's it.
That's why
not to say that doesn't
exist.
Do
it so much.
Yeah, if you're a young IT expert, genius, and you figure out whatever fill in the blank technology that has changed the world, right?
Yep.
Then there are the the people who do that. And yet, I don't think even those people were thinking we're on a shortcut, because it was a grind, right, for them to create. Call it Facebook, call it Amazon. I remember Amazon. I remember when it was
well, that one was a
going, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna operate at a loss for the next, I can't remember the number, 10, 15, 20 years, but we're gonna get there. And I was like, that seems just crazy.
That seems insane.
Like, why would you do that? And yet here they are, and it's just like been amazing for them.
Worked out pretty well. Vision, right? Based on principles, long-term vision on principles.
Yep.
Okay, well, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Did I let you finish, Rod, or did I cut you off?
Well, maybe I didn't finish just because I got hung up on this. Well, sometimes you can shortcut it, but most of the time, just with most things in life, there's a process. You go through it. You're not going to find a hack or a trick that's going to bring you to the spot immediately with just about anything. So valuing wisdom, framework, we talked about principles earlier, allowing those things to drive it is going to be much more valuable of a learning experience than if you're just trying to always shortcut things.
Okay, Rod, the next one we're going to talk about is the scarcity mindset. Or sorry, I missed it. But we are going to talk about the scarcity. We're going to talk about confidence and the way that things change. The reason I said that is because I was thinking that was my mindset when I was younger. I didn't realize it was my mindset, but I've given this example on the pod a lot of times. But I bought my first house completely out of fear that I would never be able to get into a house unless I did it immediately. So despite the quickly rising house prices, I was like, I just have to do this. And, you listen to the limited advice I had at that time, and I jumped in. And while the good news is real estate always kind of comes back, and like I have a lot of equity in that house today, but I've also owned it now for 17 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think back on that and I'm like, that's just one of the examples in my head of, even though I feel like I was one of those people who believed in the possibilities, I still found myself victim to that scarcity mindset, just in pockets, different places in my life. And, you learn the hard way in those situations. You learn, but you learn the hard way. I'd rather learn a better way.
Well, and I think maybe one thing that's helpful in this one, if that's Jethro, then Danette is probably has a quiet confidence and a trust, like because of the learning they've had, because of the experiences they've had, because of just the realizing the long-term nature of things rather than the just trying to make everything, happen now. And experience just of the fact is you will have times where you lose money, right? If you're, the only way you don't is if that's all you do is ever hang on to cash. And well, it turns out you're losing money now because of inflation, if that's all you have. Right. So this idea that I'm going to go out and I'm going to invest, I'm going to build wealth, I'm going to do cool things, and I'm just never going to lose money along the way. Well, turns out you will. But what Danette knows, and that kind of confidence that she has, is that you can recover from that. You learn, you reposition, you can recover, you can continue to build. It's not the worst thing in the world when you have a hiccup, when you run into a speed bump.
Yeah. You not only can you recover, but if it's based on principles, the chances are most of the things that I'm doing are going to turn out, again, based on time-tested principles that we know work. So good point. Okay, Rod, that was confidence. Next, we're going to talk about the change that happens in relationships. This is interesting. Okay, so I guess the way I would think about it is just that when you're young, and we've all felt this, right? we're kind of in an arms race at that stage, right? Regardless of where we're at, like if we're in a job, if we're like, let's say that I get hired at a Big Four accounting firm, I'm grinding my way to try to stick out above the crowd in that space, right? And that kind of just happens everywhere, not just in my job. It also happens as I look at my life and my neighbors and all these things. And I think the biggest adjustments that has changed for me is that I moved to this kind of thought process of how do I design my life, right? I'm not worried as much about the show, and I'm not necessarily worried about the competition as much as I am trying to create like the best quality of life for the family. And, you start thinking about further down the line too. But anyway, so when I think about relationships, I think early on, it's a lot of that kind of that you're grinding versus your peers. And you hope that over time, there's a maturity that starts to creep in where it's less about that. Now, I don't have any room to talk because I'm building a big old house. So it's not like I don't like nice things, So I'm pretty, but here's the difference. Like the house that I'm building isn't for anybody else. It's specifically for us and designed around our life and the things that we're trying to do. And that was part of the goal from when I was young, right? So anyway, but I think that just being able to change from thinking about how others are viewing us to just being kind of comfortable in our own skin, that's probably a big part of that. And when I think about relationships, that I think is how relationships have probably adjusted as I've gained. Well, because here's the thing, Rod, things change too. I'm not going to pretend that I don't have many people in my life that have asked me or do ask for money at various times. Like that absolutely happens. And can I also tell you this, Rod? This is the funniest one, the most ridiculous too. I've noticed, Rod, and this happens especially like inside of our industry, but people who maybe previously didn't think you were that cool, suddenly they're like, oh, he makes a lot of money or he does a lot of business. Therefore, now he's like cool. Like, even though it's the exact same person, nothing changed about it. But I've absolutely lived and seen that exact same thing happening too. Right. So anyway, but my hope is that it doesn't have to be that way. And as we grow and we mature in our relationships, it becomes less about that arms race and more about being comfortable in our own skin and, caring about each other. Anyway, there's my rant on that one. Rod, what do you think?
I agree. And as someone who is older and has grandkids as an example, it's just funny how I cherish those, just the time. And I could just be sitting on the couch holding the 1-year-old who doesn't want to sit on my lap anyway. They want to be wiggling away and doing other things, but
you're forcing him to. Grandpa, let me go.
It's just
I'm just teasing.
It matters. Like the relationships matter more so than the messes or the accomplishing anything or those other things, right?
And I would also say that over time, from like a business and money standpoint, the relationships hopefully matter more than the dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's no getting around it, but at the core, like to me, that's way more important. I would sacrifice a bad relationship for money. I'm saying that wrong. The other way around, maybe. Do you get what I'm saying? I would be happy to get rid of a relationship, even if it lost me money, if the relationship, or same thing. I'm, being in a relationship that's valuable in a lot of ways, that's not necessarily all about money. Same thing. So anyway, you could go and, you can take relationships a lot of different places. Okay. Next one, Rod. I kind of hit on this one already. But I don't know how I ended up bringing it. So I put it right into the relationships category. But number 7, Rod, is lifestyle. And that's basically what I just talked about. So do you have anything to add or subtract to when we talk about lifestyle?
Just one piece of it that maybe kind of you hit on, but it goes from stuff. to more like experiences and freedom and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So, because the thing you realize really quickly, Jethro probably already knows it, is that no matter how much stuff you buy, there's more stuff out there you can go buy. Right?
Stuff doesn't make you happy.
If you're trying to fill your life with stuff, or you think that stuff is going to make you happy or fulfilled or whatever, it just doesn't. And so there is that evolution towards, okay, well, if that's not it, then what? Okay, well, then what? Usually, what we've seen with people is it goes back to the relationships. Well, how can I enhance those relationships? Well, it's spending time together. And so freedom and experiences and things like that become more valuable. And even the simplicity, like I mentioned, sitting on the couch with a grandchild is an amazing experience. Stuff is, if I was focused on, oh, well, let me give you the toys, or let me give you the whatever, to me, that is not nearly as fulfilling as it is to just have that time together.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And when I think of lifestyle, I kind of think of getting to a place of more contentment, right? To where, like you said, it's not about the things so much as it is about all of the other stuff around that creates, what most people are looking for: peace, happiness, joy, all of those things that everybody is looking for in this life. I think that's what we see successful people start to move toward. Now, that doesn't mean that they have it all figured out, right? I'm just saying it frequently is where the mindset changes. It's how it changes. It isn't, again, this is a really weird thing, because you oftentimes think, oh, the rich people just want money. They just want money. Really, they don't want money so much as they want, now some people do. I shouldn't say that. But my experience is with the people that we usually work with, they're not necessarily just out to create as much money as they can. They're out to create peace of mind, benefits for the, impact, people they care about, generational wealth for their family, all those things. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay. So 7 was lifestyle, Rod. The next one is responsibility. How have you seen people's sense of responsibility change as they become more financially successful?
Well, I'll build on kind of the arms race example you gave a minute ago.
Yeah.
When that's the case, it is all about me. And the visual that I had when you were doing that was like a pickup basketball game or something, right? And everyone's,
I can just see it. Rod's diving. He's like, no, I'm getting the last shot. I'm not passing this off.
and then but what that changes to, because that's all about you. It's all personal. I got to score the points. I got to get the, whatever, the glory. But then on this kind of responsibility thing, it shifts to, well, if as you're growing and as you're building and as you're successful, you can't do it alone. You realize you can't do it alone. So you rely on other people, other systems, other, whatever resources to help you get to where you were. And that shifts your mindset, like, oh, I also want to help other people to succeed as well, because I couldn't have done it alone.
Yeah, I think that's a really good
maybe
point.
More like a team mentality.
Yeah, for sure. So I look at my own life, and when I first start, again, that's the best one for me to reference. I know it pretty well. So I look back at my 25-year-old self, and it was maybe not exclusively income driven, because it was about caring for my family and so it was more about that. But in order to do that, we needed income to do it, right? Yeah. So to your point, the responsibility felt very, very personal, and you almost have to block out the rest of the world and a lot of the things that are happening, the good and the bad, things that actually do need our attention, need people's attention in order to make real change. But it ends up being really difficult to do that. So oftentimes we stay really just locked in on what we can control. And again, to be honest with you, like if you believe Stephen Covey's principles, he would suggest to control what you can control, right? Because if you don't get past that point, you never have a chance to make a bigger impact. But I think when I look back at that, I can certainly see a change that's happened to where early on it was more exclusively about me, and over time became more about other people. Whether the other people probably expanded to my family and my closest friends first, and then it expanded beyond that to where now, we build a business, and it certainly has expanded to the responsibility I feel for our clientele and doing the right thing for them. So I think that sense of responsibility does, to your point, kind of naturally shift. And especially because of the fact that we do need so many other people. And when we realize we need other people to help us get there, it becomes easier to feel that kind of sense of responsibility. Now, there's good and bad to that, right? It can be like a heavy burden, but it can also be like something that's really, really empowering. And so, we have to, again, create the balance so we're not putting too much on ourselves, but at the same time, giving ourselves the opportunity to feel empowered to do the things that we care about the most.
Yeah. You want to give back. You want to pay it forward.
Which, Rod, brings us beautifully into number 9.
Sweet.
Kick us off. What is it?
Which is, impact and legacy.
Yeah.
And
man, that like is ultimately what most people get to, right?
Yeah.
Because at some point we have to like face this really awful thing called death, and nobody gets away from it. So we start to realize like, okay, I can leave what I have here, or I can try to create and make the world better. And that's what successful people do, right? Almost without fail. I've literally never met a like ultra successful person who's like, you know what? Screw this place. They're given the bird. I'm not saying that those people don't exist, but I have personally not run across people who care less as they become more successful. Most people really do genuinely care more about the people around them, and oftentimes they care about the impact that they can have. Again, I'm not saying this is always. Let's be really clear. But we're fortunate, Rod. I would say we're fortunate to work in this high income earner space. People who aren't, they weren't people who were given a silver spoon. They were people who worked hard and they followed the principles that they knew would help them actually get there. And as a result, they find themselves in this place where they get excited about impact and legacy, whether it's for their family, whether it's for a charity, whether it's for an industry, right? So many different ways they can do it. And in my mind, that's definitely become one of the things that I get more excited about today than I did when I was younger.
Yep, I totally agree. And it's funny how that evolution works because the younger person can't even fathom that it matters, and the older person can't fathom that it doesn't matter. Right. And I'm drawing broad strokes with that. Yeah. Because age doesn't necessarily define.
Nobody's going to hold you to it, Rod.
But it's the evolution, I guess, in that evolution.
Okay. So I think the moral of the story, and I really do believe this, like more than anything, the thing that I took, and I learned this very early on, like this is one of the things I noticed very first, is that the people who I was meeting with, who I was like really looking up to because of their success, they almost without fail were people who were really locked in and focused on impact and legacy. And I think that's kind of what inspired me to kind of believe and feel that same way. So anyway, one generation to the next. All right, everybody. Thank you. Let us know how you felt about the pod, by the way. If you're like, whoa, you guys got to stick to your guns, then we can do that. But this I thought was fun. Hopefully it was a good conversation, hopefully helpful for everyone listening. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Money Insights Podcast. To learn more about the financial and business strategies discussed in this show, please visit moneyinsights.net. The views and opinions expressed on the Money Insights Podcast are not intended to be individual financial, tax, or legal advice. Always consult with the appropriate advisor before making financial decisions. And if you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This will help others find the show and learn wealth building strategies for themselves. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.